When you think of the Great Crash of 1929, what comes to mind? Probably a single chaotic day. Black Tuesday. Screaming traders, ticker tape raining down like confetti at a funeral. The end of an era in one violent lightning strike. It's a great movie scene, but it's not the truth. History, when you look closely, is rarely that simple. The collapse of Wall Street wasn't just a bad day. It wasn't some cosmic punishment for a few greedy gamblers. It was something much more unsettling. It was the expiration date on a decade-long hallucination. A collective dream fueled by debt, leverage, and the seductive, dangerous belief that gravity no longer applied to economics. When that bubble finally burst, humanity learned a lesson that we seem destined to forget and relearn over and over again. And that lesson is this: confidence is the most fragile currency on Earth. It's a ghost. And once it vanishes, no government, no central bank, and no law can just conjure it back into existence before the damage is done. The crash wasn't a single event, it was a process. It was the inevitable mathematical conclusion to years of excess. And if you're listening to this thinking it's just a dusty story about men in bowler hats, I want you to pause and look around. The exact same ingredients are simmering in our modern world right now. Cheap credit, speculative mania, asset prices detached from reality, and a culture that constantly whispers, "This time is different." The true lesson of 1929 isn't about how fast money can disappear. It's about how desperately we want to believe the music will never stop. To understand the funeral, you have to understand the party. And what a party it was. The 1920s weren't just roaring, they were intoxicating. Emerging from the ashes of World War I, America suddenly found itself the wealthiest nation in the world. It was a time of dizzying transformation. The hum of the factory was the decade's soundtrack. Electricity wasn't a luxury anymore, it was standard. Cars, radios, and washing machines were changing daily life. Cities stretched toward the sky, wages ticked up, and for the first time, the average person bought into a dazzling vision of endless abundance. But if you scratched the gold paint, the rust was already showing. America's agricultural heartland was dying, suffocated by collapsing crop prices and mountains of debt. Wealth was pooling at the very top, creating a society that looked stable on the surface, but was dangerously top-heavy, like an inverted pyramid. And the banks? They were operating with the reckless enthusiasm of a teenager with a stolen credit card, lending to anyone with a pulse and a dream. The stock market became the national obsession. Between 1921 and 1929, the Dow Jones didn't just grow, it exploded, rocketing from 63 to 381. And it wasn't just for the tycoons anymore. The barber, the elevator operator, the teacher, everyone was swept up in the fever. Brokerage offices popped up on main streets like coffee shops do today. The media fueled the fire, selling the narrative that hard work was old-fashioned. Speculation was the new path to freedom. So, how did everyone afford it? Simple. They didn't. The fuel for this raging fire was a financial innovation called margin trading. It's what turned the stock market into a national casino. An investor only needed to put down 10% cash to buy a stock. The broker would lend them the other 90%. Just think about that. With $1,000 in your pocket, you could gamble with $10,000. As long as the jagged line on the chart went up, this leverage felt like magic. It turned modest gains into small fortunes. It made geniuses out of fools. But leverage is a double-edged sword with no handle. The moment prices dipped, even slightly, the broker would issue a margin call. The investor had to pay up the difference immediately, or their stocks would be sold instantly to cover the loan. This created a mechanical time bomb. The higher the market went, the more it was propped up not by cash, but by debt. It was a skyscraper built on sand. One slip, and the forced selling would trigger a chain reaction, collapsing the entire structure. Yet, the supposed gatekeepers of the system just poured gasoline on the flames. In 1929, a leading banker, Charles Mitchell, told the public the industrial condition was absolutely sound. President Hoover campaigned on the promise of a chicken in every pot. And most famously, the esteemed economist Irving Fisher looked at the towering bubble in October 1929 and declared that stock prices had reached what looks like a permanently high plateau. These weren't stupid men, they were brilliant, but they were drunk on the era's optimism. They proved that intelligence gives you no immunity against crowd psychology. When the whole world is rewarding you for being blindly optimistic, even the experts become cheerleaders for their own destruction. The cracks started appearing before the final collapse. By 1928, the Federal Reserve tried to tap the brakes by raising interest rates, but the train of greed was moving too fast. In September 1929, the market peaked and began to wobble. The smart money, the sharks who really understood the game, quietly exited the building, leaving the small fish at the tables. Then came late October. The dam broke. Thursday, October 24th, Black Thursday. Panic didn't just knock, it kicked the door down. Nearly 13 million shares were traded. The leading bankers met, pooled their resources, and started buying stocks to prop up the market. It was a theatrical performance of confidence, and it worked for a weekend. But on Tuesday, October 29th, the cold, merciless reality set in. The panic returned with a vengeance. Over 16 million shares were dumped. The ticker tape machines, the primitive computers of the day, couldn't keep up. They ran hours behind. Can you imagine the terror? Selling your life savings but not knowing the price until hours later, only to find out you were completely wiped out. The illusion of permanent wealth vanished in a single afternoon. But we have to be precise here. The crash did not cause the Great Depression. It was the trigger. The true catastrophe was the fragility of the banking system and the incompetence of the response. The banks had gambled with depositors' money. When their stock market loans went bad, the banks died. Over 9,000 banks failed in the United States in the following years. Imagine waking up to find the doors of your bank locked forever, your life savings just gone. No insurance, no government bailout, just nothing. This destroyed the engine of the economy. Businesses couldn't borrow to pay their staff, so they closed. Unemployment soared to 25%. Global trade strangled itself as panicked nations built up tariff walls, trying to protect their own shrinking economies. It's haunting because none of it was inevitable. It was a man-made disaster, born of weak regulations, unchecked speculation, and a stubborn refusal to face hard truths. The aftermath was a decade of despair. The market lost nearly 90% of its value from its peak. The Dow fell from 381 all the way down to 41. It wasn't just money that was lost, it was dignity. An entire generation was scarred, learning to hoard, to fear, and to distrust the system. So, why does this story matter to you right now? Because the DNA of the 1929 crash is present in every major financial event of our lifetimes. The details change. One year it's internet stocks, the next it's subprime mortgages, then it's crypto tokens or AI startups. But the human behavior is identical. We still hear the same mantras. The fundamentals are strong. We are in a new paradigm. These are the prayers of denial. We chant them because the alternative, admitting that we might be walking on thin ice, is too terrifying to contemplate. The crash teaches us that the most dangerous enemy in investing isn't volatility, it's complacency. This brings the story directly to your doorstep. Look at the modern landscape. We have seen asset prices inflated by years of easy money. We see reckless speculation treated like a video game. We see a generation convinced that markets only exist to make them rich, quickly and easily. But history is a cold teacher. It tells us that when confidence breaks, the protection vanishes. The wealthy in 1929, those who owned real assets, who had cash, who didn't live on debt, they survived. The vulnerable, those who chased the hot tip, who leveraged their future, were crushed. Which side are you on? This isn't just a history lesson, it's a question of survival. If the music stopped tomorrow, if credit froze, if the screens turned red and stayed red, how fragile is your position? Are you the margin trader of the 1920s, exposed to the bone? Or are you the prudent investor, holding real value that endures? The year 1929 isn't just a date in a textbook. It's a mirror. It reflects our greed, our fear, and our endless capacity for self-delusion. The takeaway is simple, but it is vital. Do not outsource your financial safety to the system. The system is designed to grow, not to save you. Arm yourself with knowledge, with skepticism, and with resilience. Because the party always ends. It always does. Thanks for watching. If this story made you think, hit that like button and subscribe for more content that goes beyond the headlines. Stay safe out there.